All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Big Facts. I'm your host, Aaron Barrison, along with your other host, Justin Everett. And we have some shit to talk about today. Justin, did you see last night what happened with LeBron James at the Hawks game?
I caught some of it. I did not see all of it, but from what I understand, there was a Karen sighting.
Let me lay this out for you, okay?
Lay it out.
So there's this 25, she says she's 25-year-old blonde chick. She's there with who most people thought was her father, happens to be her boyfriend. I think he's around 50 years old.
Okay.
Her boyfriend's a big Hawks fan, gets courtside seats, been a Hawks fan for 20 years, and apparently says something to LeBron, and LeBron says something along the lines of shut the fuck up, which, you know, I don't understand why fans think they can go to the game, sit courtside, say whatever they want, and not get something said back to them. I understand hecklers. It's going to happen in the NBA. It's going to happen courtside. It happens at baseball games, happens at hockey games, happens at football games.
Sure.
So she gets up and starts defending her husband, starts standing up and making a scene. I bought these seats. You didn't buy the seats. Your husband probably bought the seats. But we look into this a little bit more. She ends up getting tossed from the game. Everything's the memes going around the internet, everybody calling her Karen. And she gets on live. She tries to blow it, out of proportion once she gets kicked out of the game, tells everybody what happened, says LeBron's a piece of shit. And then I go and I search a little bit deeper because people on the internet, they fucking find everything, right?
Oh, yes, they do.
Everything. So it wasn't her dad, it was her husband. They have like a kid or two together. He's 50 years old. She's 25. She has an Instagram where she's got fucking bikini pics and she's on cruise ships and thinks she's like a fucking model and she has all this plastic surgery done. And then there's another pic of her husband when they attended a Trump rally in Florida where he was like supporting the police and the firefighters or whatever. He's like this big Trump guy. So like, obviously with how anti-Trump LeBron's been, they're just fucking clashing because this guy's a big Hawks fan. He's a big NBA fan. He knows what LeBron's stance is on these political issues. And he probably just doesn't like him from the beginning. And then here comes the wife, fucking don't talk to my husband like that type of shit. So
See,
I don't know.
This is the thing that people just need to understand, dog. First of all, I know that it's still hard, but it's been months, guys. You lost. Shut the fuck up. Nobody wants to talk about politics anymore. The point of Joseph R. Biden is that he's boring. Nobody wants to fucking worry about Donald Trump anymore. So if that is the reason for your hate for an NBA player currently, you're a retard. You don't belong at games. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Dude, what the fuck? And LeBron of all guys. LeBron. This wasn't Russell Westbrook who's had fights with players before.
LeBron takes that in and then he drops like 30 in the fourth. Like that's what he does. He doesn't usually respond and get people kicked out of games. So I'm going to side with LeBron on this one.
Absolutely.
I'm going to side with him. I don't know what happened. LeBron could have been like, shut up, you're a fucking fake ass pussy bitch, and he could have done that.
Who cares though? He is an NBA player who you are paying your money to watch play a fucking game. You don't matter to that guy. Do you think when he goes to bed tonight he's going to go, man, I'm sorry that I really upset those people? He doesn't give a fuck about you. Come on, man.
LeBron James, he's the most powerful man in the NBA. I wouldn't have gone that route if I wanted to watch the basketball game. Let's move into football because I was thinking last night, Joss, and I am high on, as I think a lot of people are, the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl this year. I think they're going to. But you start thinking about matchups when you get into the playoffs. And I have a question for you because I'm thinking about it last night. I was like, holy shit, this could be like the setup of setups, because we all know that NFL, NBA is all about storylines. Mm-hmm. So the best storyline that could come out of this year, first of all, is Tom Brady at home in the Super Bowl, switching teams after 20 years, getting his 7th ring, so on and so forth. And we seem to be giving the Chiefs all the credit because Patrick Mahomes is otherworldly, and they've been running up the score on good defenses all year.
Sure.
So my question is, aside from the quarterback position, which there's a gap, but it's Tom Brady. It's not like this massive gap because Tom Brady's still Tom Brady. So Patrick Mahomes is 1. You could put Brady wherever you want in your top, whatever it is, 5.
Sure.
Aside from Patrick Mahomes and the tight end position where you have Travis Kelce, is there a skill position or a unit as a whole on the Chiefs that's actually better than the Bucs?
No, I think they're pretty evenly matched. I think when you look at the wide receiver groups, I think both wide receiver rooms are pretty good. Tyreek Hill's obviously top in the league. I think Mecole Hardman has made a name for himself now. Obviously, Antonio Brown gets forgotten, as you talked about on Sunday, who nobody wanted. Mike Evans, they've got good receivers in Tampa Bay too. I think offensive lines are pretty close. I think the Bucs have the advantage in the defense. I think their secondary and their front 7 are both better than the Chiefs, but it's Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes is a guy that has hung 40 points on a top 5 defense before. So I get you. I've been saying it all season that the NFL, Roger Goodell wants Tampa Bay to win the Super Bowl. That is the outcome out of the shittiest year.
And it's not a huge storyline.
Right. Out of the shittiest year in recent history, in living memory. I mean, we haven't had a year this bad probably since World War II. In this bad and weird and strange and awkward of a year, they just want something to feel good. And if it's Tom Brady winning again, it's comfortable because it's safe because we know it. But if it's with Tampa Bay his first year outside of New England in Tampa Bay, it's another level of that story. There's no doubt that all of the powers that be want Tampa Bay to win this game. But I don't think that they can beat Kansas City. That's why I'm high on Kansas City. I'm not as high as others. I've heard others say Kansas City +9. I've heard some crazy shit.
I said Kansas City by 9 last week. I'm starting to rethink it.
But Kansas City, I think, is going to win this game, and I think they're going to win this game handedly. I don't think it's going to be as close as the Eagles-Patriots Super Bowl was. I think the Chiefs take this game over, man. Listen, I said last week we needed to see who the Chiefs were when they came out, and they showed us, bro. They spent a 17-week regular season playing with a ball of yarn like a cat, just giving as little as they needed to and enjoying themselves. And as soon as they turn it on, it's like LeBron James versus regular season versus the playoffs, bro. When the game's on the line, when it matters, when it's the playoffs, there's just another gear they've got that other people don't have. And I just don't see Tampa Bay overcoming it, man. I think that Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, and the story's great. But honestly, dude, I don't think that Bruce Arians doesn't fuck this up. Like, Andy Reid knows how to fuck up big games, but he's learned since coaching.
The coaching difference, in my opinion, is massive.
Gigantic. Bruce Arians is a bad head coach. That's just what it is.
He is, but Tom Brady, a lot in the way that LeBron James does, really is the one that coaches the offense on that team.
But that's what I mean. I think if Bruce Arians has a Super Bowl that was like Howie Roseman's 2017 year, where every decision he makes pans out, they can win this game. They have the talent. But Andy Reid has been around far too long and has way too much talent on that football team. I don't think Andy lets anybody down this time.
So this is why I asked you that question, because when I actually started looking at the rosters, I'm going to disagree with you that it's really that close when it comes to almost every other position outside quarterback, tight end, and coach. We agree probably that Tampa Bay overall has the better Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. They're nobody's great on either side of the ball, but they're probably better than Clyde.
They're a better version of mediocre than Kansas City, sure.
Right. Okay. The wide receiver group as a whole. I'm not talking about Tyreek Hill. I'm talking about, but Mike Evans on the other side with Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Scotty Miller. The wide receiver group's better, right?
I don't know. I agree with that, bro. I think Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman are going to take out the top two on the other side. And then who do you have? You have Antonio Brown, who hasn't been as effective.
I don't agree with that because I think Mike Evans and Chris Godwin have been they haven't had their fair shot of the last couple of years, and this year they kind of showed out with Brady there. But you can make an argument that the wide receiver group
absolutely. We agree 100%. I just say wide receiver group is close and nothing else is.
Okay. So the offensive line's interesting because there's 3 guys, or there's 2 Pro Bowlers Bay's offensive line. You got Marpet and Jensen, I think, has been to the Pro Bowl. Their right tackle, Wirfs, who they drafted in the first round last year, has been incredible all year, and they have Donovan Smith as left tackle, whereas Eric Fisher and who's the other tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs is out with injury for this game. So I think we'd agree that the offensive line for Tampa Bay has been better, and Kansas City's offensive line hasn't been bad. But when you talk about guys that are dominant on the offensive line, Tampa Bay has a couple of those, and the Chiefs at this point just don't have that because their tackles are injured.
Yeah, I mean, counting for injury, I'd agree with you, but I think these guys have stepped up. They've had problems on the offensive line for the last couple of weeks, and they've still played well. I mean, if we're talking about on paper, then no doubt.
Have played well. The front four for Tampa Bay is obviously better.
Significantly better.
It's not
significantly
close.
better.
The linebacker group is significantly better on Tampa Bay. They have Devin White, Levante David there at defensive end. Jason Pierre-Paul plays outside linebacker, DN, whatever you want to call it in their defense. You can make another case probably if Antoine Winfield plays that the secondary for both teams is kind of even. I might give a little bit of the edge to the Chiefs, but it's very close there too. So when I break the point is when I break it down skill position by skill position, aside from Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, there's no other position group on Kansas City that I'm like, wow, they're a better matchup than Tampa Bay is. And it's the type of matchup, and we've been saying this with Kansas City all year. We've been like, Buffalo Bills match up well with them because they can outscore them. This team matches up well with them because they play defense, and it hasn't mattered. But when you have Tom Brady on the other side, do you start to think that maybe this matters?
No.
You don't.
Not 42-year-old Tom Brady. 35-year-old in his prime winning titles with Randy Moss, Tom Brady? Probably against this Chiefs team.
Lost the title that year.
But this Chiefs team is the best team I've ever seen assembled. And it's because of how good your quarterback is. This game to me is simple. If Patrick Mahomes does not have any layoff from the concussion, and he's fine, as long as Patrick Mahomes finishes this game, the Chiefs win this game. There's no two ways about it to me. And I'll tell you this, depending on when and where he gets hurt, if he gets hurt in the third quarter, I think Chad Henne can hold a lead. That's how fucking good this team is. And Andy Reid got his shit together while assembling a great staff of talent around him for the first time in his career. This is what Andy could have been in Philadelphia. If Donovan McNabb wasn't a fucking baby prima donna who couldn't learn or get coached by anybody, if Terrell Owens wasn't such a fucking head case and could have played with him, these are the things that would have happened under Andy Reid here. He is too good of a coach. He's not going to put his players in the wrong position. He's going to win the game. Bruce Arians is a bad coach. It's not about Tom Brady to me. It's past that. If you ask me to pick Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl, right now I'm picking Patrick Mahomes because Tom's 42. But as soon as you add Bruce Arians versus Andy Reid, that's not even a fucking thought, man. Like, Bruce Arians cannot coach up to Andy Reid. There's no way.
So the last team to win back-to-back Super Bowls was the 03-04, or was it 02-03 Patriots. So it hasn't been done in 17, 18 years. Kansas City will be the first team to try to do that since, and they haven't had a lot of roster turnover. So I think they can do it. We'll see how everything plays out. That team was like, Ty Law and Teddy Bruschi and Mike Vrabel was on that team. The defense was stacked. The offense did enough. They got Corey Dillon the next year when they won their second one. He rushed for like 1,600 yards on a discount. They did it well for a long time. Any more points about the Rams trading what they traded to get Matt Stafford? So reports always come out days after trades, and they're going to be coming out for the next couple weeks. One of the reports was Stafford told the Lions basically, hey, trade me anywhere but the Patriots. I will literally go anywhere, but I don't want to go to the Patriots. There's been so much made over the past 5 years, and Tom Brady and Bill Belichick just kept winning, so there wasn't much to talk about. But the overall sense from players that went to that organization and left that organization was that they fucking hated playing there. Does this and Matt Stafford's not like he doesn't seem like a guy that doesn't work, doesn't study, is like a lazy dude.
No, but Matt Stafford wants to go to the fucking bar and listen to country music and drink a beer, and you can't do that shit for Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So yeah, I mean, I think without getting somebody who has no other choice, the Patriots are going to be fucked, man. They're going to have to find a way to draft a kid that they can develop, because that rigid style of play we've seen is successful. It works. They've won how many championships? We know it works. But you have to find the players that can mold to it, right? Like Tom Brady is a workaholic, so it worked out. Chris Long, it loves the game, dies for the game, so it was okay. He could sacrifice. But, like, could you imagine a player like how Antonio Brown even made it into the building? Blows me the fuck away.
Well, I don't think the problem with Antonio Brown is not the way he practices and plays. The problem is what he does when he gets to his house. I don't think anybody has ever questioned Antonio Brown on a practice field, how hard the guy works. And I've seen him working in the offseason doing these ridiculous beach runs with certain the guy works. He's just questionable in every other part of life aside from football.
He's kind of a scumbag. Like, we can just call it what it is. He's kind of a scumbag. So, I mean, listen, dude, I think that sans a situation, like, let's say Carson Wentz starts this season and by week 5 is benched again because he's playing like shit and he has to go and has no choice. That's the only way you're going to end up with a name, I think, in New England. Like, Cam Newton went there to revive his career. What quarterback is out there in free agency this year that needs to revive their career? Right? Like, you think about a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick, for instance, right? That guy's not going to revive his career. His career is what it is. You don't have – and now all these fucking offensive coordinators and quarterback coaches, bro. I mean, you got guys like Kellen Moore, 34 years old, getting hired to be a quarterback coach. Those guys are saying, fuck this, I'm not risking my knees or my fucking brain. I'm just going to retire and go coach now. Why do you think Phillip Rivers walked away from football? There's another opportunity. So you don't have a guy, I think, that'll go willingly. And that's a fucking problem for that organization, bro. Tom Brady will win a Super Bowl before Bill Belichick does. And neither one of them might win one.
Yeah, there are rumors that the Patriots and they might think this as well, and they're not a team that gives up picks and things of that nature to get quarterbacks either. They value the picks. They think anybody can fit into whatever system it is that they build. And let's take a step back for a second. The Patriots technically played below expectation this year, but with the amount of guys that opted out, losing Tom Brady, losing just everyone they've lost and all the injuries that they've had, they still finished 7-9. They're not far from making a playoff run.
That was with Cam Newton, bro. Cam Newton's not back. Now they have no quarterback.
4 touchdowns all year, and they were 7-9. That's kind of unbelievable.
But you had the athleticism of Cam Newton, so you got to find Cam again. Or you gotta draft a kid that can develop like Tom Brady did.
So there's rumors that they really like Mac Jones, and I don't buy rumors necessarily with the Patriots because they tend to not tell anybody what it is that they're doing, and these guys come out of nowhere that they draft. But Mac Jones in that system is kind of the same quarterback that Tom Brady seemed to be coming out of college from Michigan, coming from Alabama, a little pocket presence, not extremely athletic, but kind of smart. I'm not real high on Alabama quarterbacks per se. I like Tua. I like Tua coming out. Yeah, I like
Tua. You love Tua. Tua's your man.
Give him a couple years. Do you think Mac Jones is a fit in New England?
Yeah, I mean, he plays the same style quarterback, but he's not going to be as good as Tom Brady was. Tom Brady got missed. Like, this is what people forget, bro. Tom Brady was drafted 20 years ago.
He really well in college. He wasn't
He got missed, bro. Michigan wasn't a quarterback farm then. Nobody drafted quarterbacks from Michigan, especially guys that it took 2 years to play on. Tom Brady just got missed, man. He just got fucking missed in an era where it was easy to miss players. Like, everybody talks about Tom Brady's the greatest draft pick of all time. Do you know how many great players, some of the greatest at their positions, were undrafted because people missed players? Like, Tom Brady was just missed. Mac Jones is not Tom Brady. But if they can run a dink and dunk, kind of like Tom's doing right now in Tampa Bay, and he can get the ball out fast, and that's all he has to do, he doesn't need to make plays, then yeah, maybe. But that's not what made Tom Brady. What made Tom Brady was he was consistent, he got the ball out fast, But if he had to make a play, he had the talent to do it. And I don't think Mac Jones got the arm talent to make plays, bro.
Yeah, we'll see how it works out for him. I mean, he was a Heisman candidate this year, but almost everybody coming out of Alabama because of the amount of games they win, the fact that Nick Saban's their coach, the fact that they have NFL coaches as their coordinators, it always seems to end up working out that way. Let's move into basketball. So, couple things. Let's first talk about the Sixers win the other night without Joel Embiid. I didn't watch that game live. I saw highlights of the game. I know Joel was out. I know they were down about 16 points at one point, maybe more. 21 points. Furkan had 17 points in a late run. I saw some highlights of Matisse Thybulle, and I have to say that, if I'm another team coming in to play the Sixers and I have a really good backcourt, I'm not excited to go into Philadelphia and have a rotation where I have to be guarded by Ben Simmons, Danny Green, and Matisse Thybulle. And I think I'll even go here. I think Ben Simmons bothers guys more because of his height and his length. But overall, I think Matisse Thybulle is a better defender than almost anyone we have on the team. 4 steals the other night, 2 pass deflections. He might make, if he gets some more minutes, an all-defensive team this year. But playing 20 minutes, it's kind of hard to do that.
So you also have to keep that in mind. He plays off the bench and he plays 20 minutes. He doesn't play Damian Lillard. He doesn't play Steph Curry. He doesn't play Kevin Durant.
And LeBron James the other night.
Well, again, sure, but LeBron James is I'm sorry, at almost 36 years old, in my opinion, the easiest guy to deal with across all those people. Because LeBron's going to drive the hole and your center's going to back you up. Matisse is a great defender. It is the one thing in his game that is perfect. He doesn't need to work on. He is the most inconsistent shooter I think I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes. It's almost fucking unbelievable. I don't disagree with you that he is very good. He's not a better defender than Ben. It's just not the case. Matisse fouls more than Ben does. While Matisse gets 4 steals sometimes, Matisse also either fouls or lets a blow-by him, and he doesn't have anybody protecting him behind way more often than Ben does. Ben's consistent. Now, again, it's not a fair competition. What's Matisse, 6'5", 6'6"?
Yeah, he's
like 210. He's a smaller stature guy. I mean, he's got a big wingspan, but he's not fucking almost 7 foot tall Ben Simmons.
Right.
And that's the only difference. But no, Matisse Thybulle's an animal, bro. I watched that game. The problem I have here is if one more motherfucker tells me Joel Embiid is not the MVP, I don't know how many more games need to happen for you to understand it. If Joel Embiid is in that game, the Sixers win by 30, and he puts in 35. That was Doc has got to find a way, unless this is literally just preservation mode. If they're doing this to preserve him, to know he's available every night come the playoffs, I'm fine. I'll deal with my frustrations right now. But you got to find a way to make this team more competitive when Joel Embiid isn't on the floor.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's in past years we've seen Ben Simmons in these games just be an all-around superstar status player when Embiid's been off the floor. The lane opens up for him. He'll average over 10 assists. He'll get around 20-something points. They'll run the break over and over. He'll find open guys. And this year it seems like when Embiid's off the floor and Ben has his free reign, he's just as aggressive as he was last year, which is weird. It doesn't make any sense to me how from one year to the next Ben can look like that with Joel off the floor, and the team looks so reliant on Embiid being there to win games. I mean, that was their first win without Embiid, I think, and they probably shouldn't have won that basketball game. So it does worry you because at some point in the season, if he misses a stretch of games, you're going to completely lose your seeding in the Eastern Conference. Yeah. And the difference between being a 1 seed in a competitive East this year and being a 5 or 4 seed is massive. And I think the Sixers can beat anyone come playoff time, but you want to have them in your building. They're obviously still a better home team, even if there's no crowd there. And so you want them to have the high seed and be able to bring people into their building and have a little bit of an easier time. especially if it comes to game sevens with teams like Boston and teams like the Nets. Speaking of the Nets, the other night, I was watching that game live. I don't know if you watched it live. They let up 149 points, not in overtime, in 4 quarters to the Washington Wizards. Now, Russell Westbrook probably had his best game of the year. Bradley Beal did his, average 35 points that he's been averaging for the season this year. He's an unbelievable scorer. He wasn't missing in the 4th quarter. But the Nets have the closers, and they go up 5 with 7 seconds left after, I think, a Kyrie Irving shot and a couple free throws by Kevin Durant. And within that 7-second span, they end up being down 1. Bradley Beal comes down from 2 feet behind the line with 2 people on him, drains a 3. And then Joe Harris goes to inbound the ball. Kevin Durant moves. He throws it to where Kevin Durant was. It gets stolen past to Russell Westbrook, and he hits a 3. They go up 1. They end up winning the game.
That's
the fact stands, aside from that complete collapse at the end of the game, they let up 149 points to the Wizards, who that was their 4th win of the year, a quarter way through the season. The Nets, as good as they can look sometimes,
they're so bad.
They're so bad defensively.
They're so bad. It is the worst super team in the history of professional sports. They're so fucking bad. So bad. And listen here, Kevin Durant didn't lose athleticism-ass motherfuckers like you. He can't defend to save his fucking life now. He did lose athleticism. Not in his shot, because he's built like a fucking scarecrow and his fucking wingspan is like 8'11". Not in his shot he didn't lose athleticism, but he definitely lost it defensively. No doubt. I was counting on Kevin Durant to be the only motherfucker on this team that could play defense, and he doesn't know how to spell defense.
Well, is that have anything to do with the fact that they're being coached by a team and coaches that collectively throughout their careers have never taught defense? I mean, Steve Nash couldn't play a lick of defense, and Mike D'Antoni's never coached defense in his entire life. How much does that play into them not being anywhere near even a good defensive team?
They are a terrible team.
They're not a terrible team.
They are going to be the biggest letdown. The biggest fucking letdown. The biggest letdown. They're going to make the playoffs as a 2 or 3 seed. Everybody's going to be like, holy shit, the Nets are coming. Here we go. Brooklyn's going to get a title, and they're going to get beaten 5 in round 1. It's going to be bad.
They remind you of the Clippers last year at all?
Oh, dude, they're worse, though. Like, Kawhi can play defense. They're worse.
Yeah.
Oh, they're such a fucking bad basketball team. What a stupid move. You gave up 8 first-round draft picks of a really fucking good guard.
Yeah, you have to remember, too, it's not like it would have helped them on defense, but Harden wasn't playing the other night, and they've had 2 or 3 guys out at pretty much every game. They're playing with a 7-man roster.
Come the fuck on. So have the Sixers. The Sixers have played underhanded for half the year, like every other team in the fucking NBA. We know.
Yeah.
What a fucking excuse. They're such a bad basketball team. They're just a bad team.
Iman Shumpert's the solution.
I didn't think Iman Shumpert still played. I thought he retired.
They just signed him. He did. He's on and staying in shape so he can get his next shot. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back, and we'll talk a little more football, a little more basketball, whatever else it is that Justin wants to talk. He's got to bring some topics to the table here.
I have some things to talk about post-break, buddy.
We'll be right back.
All right, buddy.
What do we got, Joss?
Well, I've been keeping notes since you had the Rona. Trying to remember things that I want to talk to you about. Normally, most of the things I want to talk to you about is how you were fucking wrong. So I think we're going to start there.
That's all you remember.
So I just want to ask you, in your opinion, what was your worst take of 2020?
I'm sure you know.
I'm just curious. I have a couple that are finalists. What would you say, like where we are now? What was your worst take? Let me make it smaller. What's your worst take on basketball so far?
I don't have many bad takes on basketball. I'm gonna leave that. I'm gonna leave that for you to tell me. My worst. Go ahead.
Who were the two teams we had to look out for? There was two of them. Do you remember?
The Bulls and the Pelicans.
Where are they at today? That did not age well.
Good players and no progress as a team. No progress.
That was not a good take by you. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of kudos right quick. I'm gonna highlight a great take you had, which is that Kevin Durant didn't have a layoff offensively, which I was convinced that he would. And I think that I'll give you now. There's a lot of season left to play. He could fuck himself up again. But with what we've had, you were right. I'm going to give you kudos. Kevin Durant was there. Let me ask you. I had this whole thing written up before you got the Rona. We was going to do a year-end review. What would you say my worst take of the season was? Y'all motherfuckers made videos, so you must remember mine in playback.
I definitely know what your worst take of the NFL season was.
Which was it?
It was saying Aaron Rodgers wasn't that dude anymore.
But
won the MVP. Yeah, he was. He's done the same thing every year. It's the same thing every year.
But where's Aaron Rodgers now?
I know, but he's still
home. He's not the dude.
He's the dude.
He's the dude.
He's the best. Yeah, he's the second best.
Okay.
He's the second best quarterback in the NFL.
I'll let you finish that sentence. I thought you was gonna say he was the best, and we was gonna have a problem.
You know who's the best. That's not.
Now I'm gonna ask you, bro. Talk to me about the Pelicans. I want to know why they're not as good, because I didn't agree with you that they were going to be like a 6 seed, but I thought that they could sneak into that 8 spot or in this weird tourney shit. I thought they could get there. What the fuck is going on? Is it Zion? Is that the problem?
No, it's they're very reliant on Brandon Ingram to score the basketball, and he's kind of like their lone ISO guy. And Zion puts up Zion stats. He does it in a way almost that Charles Barkley did it with offensive rebounds and putbacks, but he's not at the 3-point line shooting. He's straightforward to the rim when he gets the basketball, so he's not creating he's not a guy that's ever going to create ISO for himself. He's a little bit too big. And then you got guys like JJ Redick, who at 36 years old is really only good to catch and shoot. You got Lonzo Ball, who some games looks like fucking Ben Simmons, and then other games looks like the worst version of Ben Simmons. He's basically as bad as Ben Simmons can be offensively on certain nights. Lonzo Ball is a C+ Ben Simmons.
Yeah, Lonzo's worse.
Yeah, he's worse. So overall, I mean, 6'1" guard in Eric Bledsoe, 6'3" guard in JJ Redick, and then you got it's not a very put together team. They struggle offensively even when they're playing good defense, and they're not going to beat the best teams in the West playing that way. Now, let's also remember that last year they started off very poorly. We're one of the worst teams in the league for almost the full year, and ended up almost sneaking into the playoffs. They didn't. But right now, they're only 3, as bad as they've been, they're only 3-4 games, I think, back from the 8th seed. It's still a quarter way through the season. But I don't think Stan Van Gundy is going to be a guy that's going to get that team to gel offensively. He's never been a great offensive mind. And it looks like the right hire defensively, but they just don't have enough offensively to compete with the best teams in the West.
All right, so moving on. Is Kobe White did we overrate him, or are we now in some weird sophomore slump? What's the problem here?
Not overrated. He's a catch and shoot guy. He's a guy that can hit 9.
Guard.
Well, we're calling him overrated. He's averaging 15, 5, and 6. So I mean, he's not a bad player, but he's a
50% off Rajon Rondo.
He's a street. No, he's not, because Rajon couldn't shoot. He's not really
same stat line. Who cares how you get there? It's same stat line.
No, he's not. He's not technically really a point guard. He's a shooting guard, and Zach LaVine ends up playing the small forward. Kobe White is a catch and shoot hot player. Let's also remember, I compared him to Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson was not a very good NBA player for the first 3 or 4 years of his career. I think Kobe White 2 years into his career.
That hedge. Shape that hedge, dog. Hedge that bet, homie. I got you. You got to protect yourself.
15, 5, and 6 is not a bad NBA.
Dog, listen, you got to protect yourself. I understand. Hedge the bet. It's cool. I'm all right with it. I'm here for it. Now, let's get local for a second. I was asked the other day if I had a choice of Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts, or start fresh, what would I do now that we know what this Eagles coaching staff is? Mm-hmm. What would you say to that question?
How much time do I get to think about this?
Right now, gun to your head, homie.
My gut feeling is that you have to keep both of these guys and make a decision between the both of them based on how training camp and the start of the season goes. And if Carson Wentz wasn't statistically and win percentage wise, I mean, we're talking about completion percentage, touchdown to interception ratio, game winning games, so on and so forth. There's a reason, Justin, that we defended him as bad as he was through the first 6 games of this season. And it's because, again, we can even put 2017 aside. The coaching went downhill. The coordinators went downhill. The team's older. There's bad contracts. And he still found a way to make the playoffs both years. I don't think you're ever going to see, based off that injury, 2017 Carson Wentz again. But it's hard to imagine that you can't see a guy that has high completion percentage, wins you games, has a very good touchdown to interception ratio, and makes those couple plays a game that you're like, oh my God, that was a game-saving, game-winning play. I have to imagine that if I think I'm bringing in the right offensive guy, which they believe Nick Sirianni is, that I have to give a shot to Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts. And if Carson Wentz isn't performing, I'm happy to keep both of them, because if I can get rid of Carson Wentz, I have a guy on a rookie deal and I can figure out what the hell I have, you know? So
you and your rookie deal quarterbacks, dog. We know that's
that rookie deal. They can be big. You have a small window with these guys.
That's the fucking key, dog. Rinse and repeat as soon as it's done. So I answered the question similarly to you. Here's what I think now. After I look at this staff, after I look at what Nick Sirianni's done, what Frank Reich has said about Nick Sirianni, I believe you have to start this season with Carson Wentz. Mm-hmm. You can't take the risk of this coaching staff and it not fix your quarterback. It just doesn't make sense to not do that. Unless their doors are blown off, unless Washington comes and says, hey, we'll give you 4 first-round draft picks, who gives a shit and this else, you know what I'm saying? Unless something crazy, I think Carson Wentz has to start. But the bigger reason why is because if I'm starting fresh, I'm not getting Jamar Chase at number 6 or Devonta Smith or whoever I bring in to make this team better. I'm going to have to draft a quarterback. And that means who's it going to be? Is it going to be Mac Jones by then? Will 3 quarterbacks be off the board by the 6th pick? Potentially.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's rumors of Deshaun Watson to Jacksonville for the 1st overall pick. There's all kinds of different shit going on right now. Nobody knows what's going to happen. And if I got to start fresh, dude, I don't want to start fresh in the most volatile quarterback offseason in recent memory. I would rather buckle down, let Carson Wentz get to know this coaching staff and see if they can fucking fix him.
I mean,
you don't have a problem.
There was a report that came out, and we all thought that, you know, obviously if you're going to pick a quarterback, and I'm just comparing situations, Stafford and Goff, we think are on 2 different levels of quarterback. But there was rumors and things out on Twitter and by credible sources that the Lions are very high on Jared Goff. They're like, he's beat Russell Wilson in the playoffs. He's been to a Super Bowl already. And last year was kind of a down year. And in the system with Sean McVay, he actually performed very well. He made a Pro Bowl. He beat Deshaun Watson in the playoffs, I think. No, not Deshaun Watson. Somebody else on the NFC side, but he crushed a couple quarterbacks over the last 2 seasons. And there's a lot of teams that were high on Goff that wanted Goff and were calling the Rams about him. And the Lions just happened to get a great offer to get Matt Stafford, and he had to be moved anyway. So they were like, here you go. So based on
the Rams made a run at Aaron Rodgers. That was their pick.
Right. And so my point is we compare Goff and Wentz because they went 1-2 in that draft. And both of them had pretty bad years in games last year where they both looked like they had no idea what they were doing. But we've seen these great games from them and these great runs from them over a span of time that lets us know that they have something in them that allows them the capability to be a good quarterback in the NFL. So what's the market for Carson Wentz based on having 9 or 10 bad games last year? Like, there's got to be a market.
You'd think it's got to be at least what you got for Matt Stafford. It has to be.
I don't think it's that high because Matt Stafford
has to be. It can't be lower. It's not possible for it to be lower. If the market
was that high, they would have traded him.
Bro, you're talking about 33-year-old Matt Stafford and 25-year-old Carson Wentz.
I don't think he's
26? What the fuck? He's younger. You have a much larger window with Carson Wentz, and he's already signed to a contract. You're not going to have to replace him in 2 years. Of course, the compensation would have to be the same.
He's 28.
They're
not that far off.
And Matt Stafford's 33. You're going to try to tell me there's not a difference between 28 and 33? Come on, bro.
Not when you've had the injuries that Wentz has had.
Come on, bro.
I don't know. I've
always what Matt Stafford got.
I think you can make an argument for Wentz based on how he played the last couple years, but Matt Stafford's been playing really well on a really bad team for a long time and won more games with the Detroit Lions last year.
Matt Stafford has won 1 playoff game ever.
Carson Wentz hasn't won any.
That's all he has over Carson Wentz. His touchdown-interception ratio is worse than Carson Wentz. His QB rating over his career is about the same. They're about the same quarterback. One is 6 years younger.
So there was a tweet yesterday by Dan Orlovsky just not basically saying what Matt Stafford's had over the last. We'll both agree that the Lions are all-time bad and have been a bad franchise for as long as we can remember, correct? I mean, we're both
except for the fact that they had the greatest wide receiver of his generation playing for them.
Their team and their franchise has been an awful franchise.
Yeah, sure.
For our whole lives.
Sure.
Okay. So Dan Orlovsky put out a tweet yesterday. Last 6 years of Stafford's career, his team averaged 89 yards rushing per game. Last year, and this is why the Rams made this trade. Last year, the Rams averaged 126 yards per game. He's had a 100-yard back in a game 11 times in 12 years. 100-yard game a year for Matt Stafford, where he's had any help from his line, any help from his running backs. The Rams did that 5 times last year. He had a top 10 defense 1 time in 12 seasons. He went 11-5. The Rams are a top 5 defense, not a top 10 defense. They're a top 5 defense. I have no doubt that next year we're going to see a significant upgrade with the Rams. And if Matt Stafford is healthy going into the playoffs, teams are not going to want to play them.
Are the Rams going to beat Aaron Rodgers in an NFC Championship game at Lambeau Field?
I think they could next year. Absolutely.
Are they? Yes or no? Would they beat him?
Yeah, they would have had a shot this year.
How about Tampa Bay? Tom Brady comes back again.
At 43, maybe.
But you can't say, oh, absolutely, they're going to win that game because of Matt Stafford.
Who can you say absolutely when you're talking about Tom Brady?
Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes.
Rodgers just lost to Brady.
Right. So, There's a group of guys who are like LeBron James, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson.
We're comparing the Packers defense to the Rams defense right
now. I'm not comparing the Packers defense, bro. I'm telling you that even with Matt Stafford, the Rams don't beat Aaron Rodgers. Even with Matt Stafford, the Rams don't beat Tom Brady. Even with Matt Stafford, if Seattle shores up their defense a little tiny bit, Russell Wilson's back in the playoffs, and he's a fucking problem in the playoffs. Matt Stafford is not a guy that puts you over the top, bro. This is the argument we have about Ryan Tannehill being called a fucking franchise quarterback. No, he is good. Ryan Tannehill's good. Matt Stafford's really good. Neither one of those guys are great. Matt Stafford's not a fucking Hall of Famer. Matt Stafford didn't do things that were unbelievable, and he had Calvin Johnson for a decade.
He had good stats with Calvin. They just didn't have wins.
And Donovan McNabb had great stats with shit receivers. Is he a Hall of Famer? In your eyes, I'm sure he is, because you're a fucking homer.
No, it has nothing to do with that. I mean, when they started putting up, man, and I was thinking about this conversation that we've had and gone back and forth about a million times. And remember, there were statistics comparing the amount of NFC championship wins that Tom Brady has in comparison to like Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers, and like 1 year in the NFC, and he's tied with them. So Donovan McNabb, as far as playoff wins in the NFC, is up there with every great quarterback around him. The names below him, the names above him are all Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
What's the difference?
And we discredit him because he didn't win a Super Bowl.
Because he couldn't win the game. And the one time he got a player that could help him win a game, he chased him out because he's a prima donna, crybaby little bitch. Donovan McNabb is not a Hall of Famer.
I love T.O., but we're going to act like they're both not prima donnas.
Terrell Owens is the second or third greatest wide receiver of all time.
Yes.
Donovan McNabb is not even the 22nd greatest quarterback of all time. You're comparing apples to oranges. T.O. is the prima donna. That's his fucking job. He was the best wide receiver in the league. He's allowed to be a prima donna. Bitch ass, whiny ass, fucking, oh, look at me, Donovan McNabb. Had to have the spotlight. So he chased out the only skill player that he had because he's a fucking terrible quarterback.
An instance where you think McNabb was a prima donna.
Oh, give me a fucking break, bro. McNabb was my quarterback too. Every fucking week he went out to talk and lost the game. How it wasn't his fault. It was his fucking offensive line. Runyon missed the block. U.S. missed the pass. Fuck you, Donovan. Nobody likes you. Only Aaron does.
Yeah, I actually don't really like Donovan McNabb that much. I've met him once. He was nice to me, but I've heard stories about how he was a fucking dick everywhere he went in Philadelphia.
He's not a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Okay.
And if he is, you have to then say that Matthew Stafford's a Hall of Fame quarterback. They're the same goddamn guy.
Stafford hasn't been to fucking 5 NFC championship
Matt
games.
Stafford didn't have Andy Reid as a head coach or Brian Dawkins on defense or Jeremiah Potter or Devon Curse or Trent Cole or fucking the tattooed one.
They had a great defense. They had a great defense for a while, yeah.
But they're the same fucking quarterback.
I disagree, but we can move on. I'm never going to agree with you about that. You know that.
I need to understand why you have such.
Because there's rare air when you're talking about what he accomplished. Aside, like if you just want to pin it all on a Super Bowl, you can do that, and that's the argument against. But he's in rare air when you talk about the amount of playoff games he's won and how many NFC championships. It's so hard to do that, and he did it.
How many NFC championships did Donovan McNabb win?
He was 1-4.
Okay, so he won 1.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not impressive. That's 1 for 5. That's failing any sport.
LeBron has a losing record in the finals.
Oh,
and we think he's the greatest player of all time.
For the love of God. How are you going to invoke LeBron talking about Donovan McNabb?
Because you can't use one argument and then not use it over here. We're talking about losing records.
What argument? No. We're not talking about losing records. LeBron's not 1-5 in the finals. LeBron's not 1 for 5 in the finals. He's not.
Yeah.
That is what Donovan is. Donovan has won 1 big game in his entire life.
Yeah, I mean we're starting to talk about guys like Charles Barkley and Hakeem Olajuwon if we're not talking about LeBron James. It's pretty much the same thing.
Stop, bro. He's not that good.
Same thing.
Who is a better quarterback?
No, he's not that good. He's not quite those guys.
Who was a better quarterback, Eli Manning or Donovan McNabb?
It's a hard question.
Who is a better quarterback?
If I was starting a franchise, I would take Donovan McNabb in a second.
That's not what I asked you. That's not what I asked you. Who is a better quarterback, Eli Manning or Donovan McNabb?
Probably Donovan McNabb.
Come on, bro. You can't. How? Skip?
What did Eli Manning do in those Super Bowls? His defense was great. His defense
he extended plays and made the passes and got the ball down the field.
His whole career was made of extending plays.
But Donovan didn't ever get us there over the hump. Eli Manning's a better quarterback. How, Sway? How?
So then you're telling me that you would pick him to start your franchise if he's a better quarterback?
Absolutely. If I have Eli Manning, as I know Eli Manning, who won 2 Super Bowls, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't like Eli Manning that much.
You don't, because you're conditioned to hate him. He's a New York Giant. I'm with you. But you got to step back, be a little objective, and say, wow, Eli had a better career than Donovan.
Do you think McNabb was better than Romo?
I think you're probably talking about the upper and lower of the same level quarterback. I think Donovan's at the top of that class, and I think Tony's at the bottom of that class.
Okay.
Similar. Donovan better, but not by a lot.
Okay.
Carson Palmer. Is Carson Palmer a Hall of Famer? Great quarterback. Not a Hall of Famer.
I think he was talented enough to be.
But he's not, right? We agree. Please. He's not.
He's not. Yeah.
Okay. Donovan, I'll give you that. I'm going to say that right back at you. Here you go. Here's a cookie. Donovan could have been a Hall of Famer. I think he was good enough to have been a Hall of Famer, but he couldn't accomplish his own potential. That's the problem. He's not a Hall of Famer.
Do you think at the point that Andy Reid just kind of asked him to stop running the football kind of was a little bit of their demise, though, because he kept getting hurt? They wanted him to stay in the pocket and stop running so much. He started to stay in the pocket and kind of took away from his strengths, almost in the same way that we're seeing this play out with Carson Wentz. Gets an injury, and they're like, hey, stay in the pocket. But his best attribute is getting outside the pocket and making plays.
Sure, he was mismanaged, bro. There's no doubt. Andy did not accomplish the potential of this team either. No question. I'm with you. It's not just Donovan, but Donovan himself didn't even accomplish his potential. Matt Stafford can go home and say, I accomplished everything I could in Detroit, because he did, but Donovan didn't. Like Matt Stafford fucking threw a touchdown with broken ribs. That fucking mic'd up shit came out this year with broken ribs.
Yeah, that was either rib or a collarbone, right?
Yeah, whatever it was on his throwing side and still fucking did it. Matt Stafford has laid it all out there. Donovan's not that same guy.
He was playing with like a broken, fractured back or neck last year too.
Yeah, dude, he's a fucking animal. He's a corn-fed fucking middle of the country boy who just fucking goes out and plays football. What I do for a living, I play football. That's who Matt Stafford is.
Would you swap Carson Wentz right now for Matt Stafford?
In a fucking heartbeat. In a fucking heartbeat. Matt Stafford gives me a 3-year window of being able to stay relevant. And I find a way to, because I've got Jalen Hurts. Matt Stafford can win me now, and I can really make Jalen Hurts the quarterback I want him to be. Absolutely, without thinking. I would have, listen, man, you'd have been hard-pressed for me to say no to matching what LA gave up. 2 first-round picks to get out of this contract, to get out of the money and get a guy in here. I think I would. You know
what's crazy is Goff's contract is set up in a similar way to Wentz's, where because they traded him in the timing that they did, they have like a $22 million cap hit, I think, for Goff going forward next year. And they ate it because they think they have a Super Bowl roster. The Eagles are not going to eat it because they're not a piece away. They're 10 pieces away, and they can't give up that type of capital to do it. So anything else that you want to cover?
I don't think so, pal. Fucking still snowing here, buddy.
All right, well, we'll have some stuff coming up on Sunday. I know there's 2 guys on the COVID watch list right now for the Chiefs. That could play into the Super Bowl. They're just in close contact, so they're not ruled out for the game. We'll be back Sunday morning. I will be in Hilton Head. Going on vacation, just locked in a room for 10 days with COVID, going on vacation on Thursday. I'm pumped about it. Ready to go to Hilton Head. Where are you going to be watching the Super Bowl?
Probably in my crib, dog. It's the Rona. We can't go nowhere.
True. Yeah, I always forget.
I'm probably going to be watching between my phone and the computer. It's a Sunday. I usually cook. I imagine it's this week. It's the weekend my parents are coming over, so I cook. So I'm going to be busy. I'll be paying attention. But again, man, Big Red's going to win another one. And all you Andy Reid haters out there, I hope when you go to bed after Andy Reid reaches his next level of his greatest coach of all time.
Yeah.
Dude, listen to me. Andy Reid, I'm saying it now and I hate it because I don't like Andy Reid as much. What's today's date? Today's the 2nd of February. I'm not an Andy Reid lover, all right? I want everybody to understand that. But on the 2nd of February in 2021, I'm going to say by the end of this decade, by the end of the 2020s, Andy Reid will be the greatest head coach of all time in the NFL. And I don't think it's going to be close because I believe they can win 4 or 5 of the next 9 titles. That's how fucking good this team is.
Yeah.
I'm so high on them.
They do that. That's going to be quite a resume for any all-time coach with multiple teams. So we'll be back Sunday morning. Big Facts, all streaming platforms. We will see you then.
Peace.